TSMC has comfortably beaten market forecasts for its fourth quarter revenue.
Today, Taiwan Semiconductor is announcing that they will be investing at least $100 billion in new capital in the United States over the next short period of time.
Taiwanese chip giant TSMC's new facility in the US state of Arizona.
Did you know that the world is ruled by a single company? Not by force, not by politics, but by something far more subtle. A chip. It's a tiny piece of technology, smaller than a fingernail, yet it holds the power to control the future. It's inside your phone, your car, your laptop. It powers AI, the military, space exploration, and even the financial markets. And the company that makes it? Most people have never even heard of it. Taiwan's Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC. It doesn't design chips. It doesn't own a product like Apple or Samsung, yet the world's biggest companies and governments cannot function without it. TSMC produces 92% of the world's most advanced semiconductors. That's right, nearly all the cutting-edge technology we rely on comes from one company in Taiwan. But here's the twist. This dominance has made TSMC the center of a global power struggle between the United States and China. If control of TSMC ever shifted, it could alter the balance of world power in an instant. How did this one company become so powerful? And how vulnerable is the world because of it? Let's find out. TSMC's rise to dominance didn't happen overnight. It started with one man who saw the future before anyone else did. His name? Morris Chang. Born in China in 1931, Chang fled to Hong Kong during the Chinese Civil War and later moved to the United States, where he earned a PhD in electrical engineering from Stanford. He spent 25 years working at Texas Instruments, rising through the ranks. But in the 1980s, the global semiconductor industry was shifting. At the time, companies like Intel and IBM designed and manufactured their own chips. But as competition with Japan intensified, American firms looked for ways to cut costs. Building semiconductor factories was expensive, so companies started outsourcing chip production. That's when Taiwan saw an opportunity. The government wanted to invest in high-tech industries and invited Chang to lead the charge. In 1987, with $200 million in government funding, Chang founded Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC. But Chang did something revolutionary. Instead of designing its own chips, TSMC became the world's first dedicated foundry, producing chips for any company that needed them. This was unheard of at the time. Most semiconductor firms kept production in-house, but Chang realized that as chips got more complex, companies would need specialized manufacturers to make them. His bet paid off. TSMC's pure-play foundry model attracted companies like AMD, NVIDIA, and Qualcomm, firms that designed chips but lacked the resources to build them. Over time, even tech giants like Apple and Intel started relying on TSMC. Today, TSMC is the backbone of the global tech industry. But its real power? That comes from something even smaller. Because in the world of semiconductors, size matters. And no one makes chips smaller than TSMC. So what makes TSMC so unstoppable? When it comes to semiconductors, smaller is better. And I don't just mean a little better, I mean game-changing. See, every chip is packed with tiny electronic switches called transistors. These transistors control electricity and basically act like the brain of your device. The more you can cram onto a chip, the faster and more powerful it becomes. And this is where things get crazy. Chips are measured in nanometers. 1 nanometer is 1/1000th of a meter.
If you look at 28 nanometer, it was like 1,000th of the diameter of a human hair.
That's 100,000 times thinner than a human hair. The smaller the number, the more advanced the chip. Right now, most high-end devices, think iPhones, AI processors, electric cars, run on chips smaller than 10 nanometers. And guess who makes 92% of them? TSMC. Even Samsung, the only other company capable of producing these cutting-edge chips, can't match TSMC's efficiency or quality. But TSMC isn't stopping. They're already working on 2-nanometer chips, set to launch in 2025. Imagine smartphones that last 4 days on a single charge, or AI that thinks 10 times faster. That's what's coming. Meanwhile, China is scrambling to catch up. But here's the problem. TSMC's technology is so advanced, even the most well-funded competitors can't replicate it. And that makes TSMC one of the most powerful companies in the world, because if anything happens to it, a war, a cyber attack, a natural disaster, the entire world feels it. Think about this for a second. Almost everything you own runs on a chip. Your phone, your laptop, your gaming console, your car, your fridge, even your washing machine. But here's the crazy part. 92% of the world's most advanced chips come from one company. That means if you're using an iPhone, it has a TSMC chip inside. If you're driving a Tesla, yep, TSMC. Using a PlayStation 5, that too. Even NASA's Mars rover depends on TSMC chips. And it's not just consumer electronics. TSMC's chips are inside fighter jets, military satellites, and artificial intelligence systems. This isn't just about convenience, it's about global security. During the 2021 chip shortage, automakers had to shut down factories because they couldn't get enough semiconductors. Billions of dollars were lost, all because of a supply bottleneck. Now, imagine what would happen if TSMC suddenly stopped producing chips. No new iPhones, no electric cars, no AI breakthroughs. Entire industries would freeze. And here's the big problem. Nobody can replace TSMC. Intel, still years behind in advanced chip production. Samsung, it can make chips, but it doesn't have TSMC's efficiency. China, desperately trying, but still struggling to catch up. This isn't just about technology, it's about power. And TSMC is caught in the middle of the biggest geopolitical battle of our time. TSMC isn't just a company, it's a geopolitical weapon. Why? Because nearly every country depends on its chips, and that makes Taiwan, a small island of 23 million people, one of the most important places on Earth. Let's break it down. The United States needs TSMC. Without it, American companies like Apple, Nvidia, and Qualcomm wouldn't survive. Even Intel, once the king of chip making, now relies on TSMC to manufacture its most advanced chips. But here's the twist. China needs TSMC too. Despite investing billions into its own semiconductor industry, China is years behind in making advanced chips. Companies like Huawei and SMIC have tried to develop their own processors, but they're stuck at 7-nanometer chips, while TSMC is already working on 2-nanometer technology. And that's why Taiwan has become the center of a global power struggle. China sees Taiwan as a breakaway province, and the Chinese government has repeatedly said it wants to reunify with the island, by force if necessary. If that happened, China wouldn't just gain control of Taiwan, it would gain control of the world's most advanced chip maker. And that terrifies the United States. In August 2022, when U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan, China responded by surrounding the island with military exercises. But guess what? During her visit, Pelosi made sure to meet one person, TSMC's chairman, Mark Liu. That's how important TSMC is. The U.S. has taken major steps to protect its chip supply. In 2022, President Joe Biden signed the CHIPS Act, offering $52 billion in subsidies to bring chip manufacturing back to America. TSMC is already building a $40 billion factory in Arizona, expected to open in 2024. But here's the reality. Even with these new factories, the U.S. still won't be able to replace TSMC. The process of making chips is so complex, so advanced, that Taiwan will remain the global leader for years to come. And that means one thing. As long as the world depends on TSMC, Taiwan will remain one of the most strategically important places on Earth. TSMC might be the most powerful semiconductor company in the world, but that power comes with risk. Right now, the company is caught in the middle of a global tech war. The US and China are both pulling TSMC in opposite directions, each wanting control over its technology. But TSMC can't please everyone, and that's creating serious problems. The United States isn't just trying to strengthen its own chip industry, it's also trying to cripple China's. Under the CHIPS Act, any company that takes US funding cannot build advanced chips for China. And guess what? TSMC took the money. That means TSMC can't manufacture China's most advanced processors. Companies like Huawei, already under heavy US sanctions, now have even fewer options to get the high-tech chips they need. And China? They're furious. For years, China has tried to catch up in semiconductor technology, but they're still years behind. If they can't beat TSMC economically, could they try to take Taiwan by force? Military analysts believe that if China invaded Taiwan, the first thing they'd seize is TSMC's factories. In fact, some US officials have even suggested a scorched earth policy, meaning Taiwan should destroy its chip plants if China ever invades. Sounds extreme? Maybe, but it shows just how high the stakes are. Then there's the science problem. TSMC is pushing chip sizes to their absolute limit. Right now, they're working on 2 nanometer chips, but eventually, there will be a point where transistors physically can't get any smaller. What happens then? That's the next big question in semiconductor innovation. For now, TSMC is still ahead. But with geopolitical tensions rising and technological barriers approaching, the company faces a future that's as uncertain as it is powerful. So here's the big picture. TSMC isn't just a company. It's the backbone of modern technology. It powers your smartphone, your laptop, your car, even military defense systems and space exploration. Without TSMC, entire industries would collapse overnight. But that's also what makes it one of the most vulnerable companies in the world. Right now, TSMC is trapped in a global chess game between the United States and China. Both superpowers want control over the future of semiconductors, and TSMC is caught right in the middle. The US is pumping billions into domestic chip manufacturing to reduce reliance on Taiwan, while China is desperately trying to catch up. But no matter what, TSMC remains years ahead of the competition. For now, the world still depends on this one company. But for how much longer? Can the US build a chip industry that rivals Taiwan? Will China ever be able to match TSMC's technology? Or will Taiwan and its golden goose of a company be forever at the center of global power struggles? One thing is certain, TSMC doesn't just make chips. It makes the future. And as long as the world runs on technology, TSMC rules the world.